Have you ever took a journey to the other side? Come on, take a ride. Have you ever took a journey? We gon' feel alive.
Hey, welcome back to Breakfast with the Boys. I'm Tony the Thrill Hill. You know we're going to keep it real over here and have a bunch of fun. I got my colleague, my best buddy over here on the side. He's going to tell you a little bit about the show, but hopefully you guys will enjoy it, and we'll have a blast because we got a great guest, some great topics, some great things to talk about. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my man, my son.
Yes, sir. Hey, episode 13, Breakfast with the Boys. We appreciate y'all kicking it with us once again. And a couple of shout-outs. As y'all know, we do the housekeeping before we get going. Shout out to our man Kurt McGirt for the intro music. It never gets old. It still gets played around my house with the girls. We got to shout out MurrayMedia.net. Doug, we heard you had a rough go at the tennis court, man, so we'll get better, feel better soon. And then we always get right into it, man. So today we're excited. We got a fun guest we're bringing to you. We got a former 3-time Super Bowl champion, a Pro Bowler, a former number 1 overall pick, an Outland Trophy winner. That means you're the best lineman in the country. 2-time collegiate All-American. I mean, the list goes on and on. South Lake Carroll's finest over here now currently, man. Russell Maryland, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen? How y'all doing today?
We blessed, baby. We blessed. But
All
you know,
right.
one of the things you left out, though, we've seen to leave out, even though we talk about, and before we get with you, we got to talk about our man that's hanging with us. So we don't give Tyler enough love, you know. And Tyler, hey, you the man that makes it happen for us. Hey, we do a lot of stuff here. Russell, the guy you just met over here, he's Tyler, man. He makes everything rock and roll for us.
Okay.
And plus, we got to talk about this as well. HOF, you know. I mean, he's not in the Hall of Fame professional, and perhaps he may get recognized. But, hey, when you're talking about Hall of Fames, he's Miami Hall of Fame, the Cotton Bowl Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame. Hey, wait a minute. And now what's the NCAA Silver Anniversary Award? What'd you pull out there? What is that, man? I'm going back on you.
You're going way back on that one. That's an award that I got, oh, my goodness, maybe a little over 10 years ago. And it's 25 years for college athletes that have been out 25 years. And the NCAA takes the time to recognize a few of those athletes. Like one when I remember I was with me was well, she wasn't 25 years out, but she was one of the students that Colleen Quigley. She's a steeplechase woman that she does a great job. Kenny Harrison, another track and field girl. They celebrated her because she was just coming out at the time. And so me and a couple other former college athletes that had been out for 25 years that they recognized. So,
and see, our peeps don't really know what we're talking about as well, though. I mean, another thing that he's picked up was the Iron Arrow Honor Society Award. Now, what is that? Now, come on, bro. I say, hey, talk to us over here, man.
I mean, you got to do your homework, man.
Y'all don't have, hey.
No, we did our homework. Well, we want to hear from you, though.
Y'all don't have that at Stanford?
No, Stanford, we have prestigious award. It's just a big P. You know, we don't have to go through all that at Stanford. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the Iron Arrow is the highest honor that the University of Miami bestows upon its students.
Right.
And in my last year at the University of Miami back in 1990, I was inducted into Iron Arrow Society.
Right.
Amongst some greats that attended the University of Miami on the field and off the field. So that was an incredible honor that I cherish to this day.
Well, yeah, and we do our homework. Just FYI, don't get it twisted over here. We do our homework.
I see.
We just want to hear you say it, you know, because I think that's an outstanding award. I mean, you can talk about all the accomplishments that you've had, and you know, quite frankly, I haven't had no award like that other than, well, no, I'm just a good dad. And that's all we can go for, you know.
Hey, that's good enough. That's good enough for me.
That's the number 1 award, man.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, keep it real with us, man. What are you talking about today?
Well, hey, I made a Stanford jab, but we'll get into that, man. Russ, one thing we love to do, man, is just to get to know everybody's story is a little bit unique, right?
Sure.
So, you know, a little bit about your upbringing, man, and the foundation that, you know, your dad working, I think, at Chrysler, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Your mom working at the police station. Just like, hey, we want to learn more about, you know, the folks that raised you, what was important to you, and what values helped you get and see the success that you got to, man.
Sure. Well, you know, I could be dramatic and say, you know, I was born a poor black child in the blustery streets of the concrete pond that is Chicago, Illinois,
ahead,
next to
fella.
Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
But I won't say all that.
Okay.
But, you know, hey, born in 1969, Chicago, Illinois. I'm the middle of 3 kids. I had an older brother who's 3 years older. A younger brother's 5 years younger, and I'm the middle kid. But I was the biggest kid. You know, I was a big brother.
Right. I
And
hear you.
my mom, well, she worked for 30 years as an accountant for the Chicago Police Department. So they love to see her coming because
Right.
she got them
bringing the
paid.
money, like, hey.
She got them paid. And my father worked for that amount of time for the Chrysler Corporation. He was a zone manager, truck specialist, and he had all of the Chicagoland, the greater Chicagoland area, Northwest Indiana area, where I can remember going on trips with him. They would be boring when I was a kid. I mean, he'd go from dealership to dealership, and he'd sit down and seem like talk for hours with the dealers, and basically he was just taking their orders, and that's what he was good. He had the gift of gab. He was a very gregarious guy. You know, everybody liked him, and he'd take their orders and then send them back to Detroit and get them their cars that they needed. So he did a great job at that, and it was made for a great living for me and my brothers. And I appreciated that. That's where I got my work ethic. I mean, you see your dad going out early and coming home late.
Right.
See my mom going out early, getting breakfast together, and coming home late, making dinner for us. So, you didn't realize that when we were younger. I never went to bed hungry, as you can tell.
Right.
My
Don't
brother-
say that too loud. Don't say I don't want looking at me as well. So don't
I'm
say
not looking
that
at
too
you,
loud.
man.
Hey.
But we were well provided for
Right.
in the city of Chicago, where it's Chicago.
Yeah.
And, a lot of bad things lie around the corner for you. But I had 2 parents we weren't good times, like JJ and Thelma and all of them, but we weren't in no high rise or anything. We were in the South Side, single family home unit neighborhood. Yeah. And we were middle class, maybe lower middle class, maybe middle class, but we were middle class kids. My parents, they prided themselves in working, hard work, and they prided themselves in us getting our education and going to school and being great students and ultimately great human beings that led productive lives and added to society and didn't take away from it. So they were great at sheltering my brothers and I from all the ills that is, city life.
Well, they set that standard. They set that bar, and you knew that you had to abide. My dad and obviously my son knows that. My pops wasn't playing that mess. Hey, right. Pops, I'm from Long Beach, and there was a lot going on in the beach, and so the gangs and et cetera. But bottom line is that I had to take care of business, or I knew what was happening because I had to answer to them, so to speak. You went to a magnet high school, correct? That's where you went to school?
Yeah, it was a school called Whitney Young High School. And Whitney Young it wasn't my neighborhood school. My neighborhood school was where Dick Butkus came out of, Chicago Vocational.
Now, Anthony, you might be too young for little Dick over there. Hey. Dick used to hold down the center court. You're talking about a middle linebacker. Hey, Dick might, you got Jerry West, the logo of the NBA. Dick Butkus could have been on the NBA, on the logo for the NFL.
For sure. He was the man back then. But Dick Butkus, linebacker for the Chicago Bears back in the day, and he went to Chicago Vocational, which was my neighborhood school. But I went to a school that was an hour and 15-minute bus ride, and train ride down the south side to downtown. You cut a left to go to the west side on the train, and you're at my high school, and it's a public school, but you have to take a test to get in. Mm-hmm. And I'm proud to say that it was the school that Michelle Obama attended.
Okay.
She was a little bit older than me. She came out maybe before I got there, but she went to school with my brother, who also attended Whitney Young High School. And it was that kind of school that produced those kind of kids.
Nice.
Shout out the Obamas.
Yeah. Big shout out.
Well, yeah, you would bring something like that up. A really close friend of mine, and his name is Charles Ogletree. We call him Tree, but he was one of the first brothers at Harvard that taught at the law school, and one of his students was Barack Obama, and not necessarily Michelle, but Barack, and So it's always good to hear that how we have folks that are doing their thing, getting down and taking care of business. So that sounds good. You know, a prestigious school over there, and you're doing your thing. Talk to me a little bit. When you say you're in high school and doing your thing, and pops and moms kept you motivated. Did you have any inspiring or somebody that a leader that you had to look up to? Not necessarily your parents, but an idol, so to speak. I mean, who motivated you other than your parents from the ball
Well, when I first think about it, of course, the first one was my dad. He was a natural motivator. You know, I remember times when I'm in Saturday mornings and I'm not doing anything. I'm watching cartoons when they only came on Saturday morning. I don't think you know about that, young fella.
Yeah, you're a young buck, hey. Yeah, there you go.
And my father was like, man, all you guys are doing is eating up all the food in the house. You know,
Right.
And that's what we was doing. We was proficient at that, you know, and he didn't like that, you know. So he'd get us up and get us going. And get us out of the house and do something. You know, he wanted us not to be lazy kids, so he was the primary motivator. But I also had good church motivators. I was a part of an usher board at St. John Baptist Church, St. John Church Baptist. Excuse me on that. It's on 48th of Michigan, and I was a part of the usher board. I remember Mr. Arbery McClary. He was the head of the usher board, and he'd always, urge my mom, you got to get those boys involved, in the usher board. And I learned all the signs. I helped the people to their seats. And if they needed water, if they needed fans, if they caught the Holy Ghost, I'd make sure that they wouldn't fall out and hurt themselves,
Yes, sir.
So it was one thing I learned about that growing up in the church was about service.
Right.
It's about service and, in order and just helping people. So Mr. McClary, may rest in peace. He was a great, great mentor that I can recall right offhand, other than my parents. Mom was, she was always there to keep the family together, even though she worked full time, but she was always there to give us some good encouragement and to make sure that her boys got the best of the best. I remember a story getting into that high school. I was coming out of I went to an Episcopalian elementary school. Once again, wasn't my neighborhood school. My parents wanted better for me. And so they sent me to an Episcopalian and my brothers to an Episcopalian private school, which I spent 9 years there, kindergarten through 8th grade. And I was considered one of the smartest kids in that 8th grade. But I had not gotten an invitation to take the test at Whitney Young High School. And so my mom, she sent what I now know from her was a well-worded missile.
They got the message, huh?
They got the message. She sent a letter.
Hey.
My mom sent a letter. That's a sermon right there. Mom sent a letter.
There you go.
And she advocated for me. Said, hey, my boy is one of the smartest kids at that school. I don't see why he hadn't gotten an invitation to take the test to get into your prestigious high school. And then next thing you know,
You got a test.
I got the invitation to take the test. And, of course, I passed the test, and I became a freshman at that school in 1982. So those are the biggest mentors that I could think of right offhand: Mom, Dad, and Mr. McClary.
So, hearing a lot about how your parents advocated for you, which is dope and amazing. As we think through your trajectory in life, man, I think it's incredible to know that somebody who's a 2-time All-American in college only had one offer coming out of high school,
Right.
man.
Yeah.
Sounds like, your parents kept you motivated. They might have advocated. Talk us through that, man, because I know there's a lot of people who should have lost jobs or should have been kicking themselves when they find out that, you mean we didn't even offer this kid? So, like, what was that like for you?
So let me give you a little background. My high school was known for its academics, of course, not its athletics. We had a pretty decent school, but we were one of 50 public high schools in the Chicago area. Chicago's a huge place. And that's not even counting the private schools that have more money and more resources. So I was just one of thousands of kids that played high school football. And I had grown to be 320 pounds as a 17-year-old kid. But I was a decent player. I got better and better every year. I wasn't considered the best in Chicago, but I was decent. And got very few offers. I got a couple of offers from Dartmouth, I remember, from Brown University.
Oh, wow.
But they weren't giving out scholarships. It was just they sent a letter. Yep. It was like, hey, we want you to play for our squad. I'm like, okay. But the only real offer that I got, legitimate offer, was not Miami. It was Indiana State.
Okay.
Indiana State Sycamores. I could have been a Sycamore down in Terre Haute, Indiana.
I can't see you being a Sycamore, though.
You know what?
Hey, you're a Hurricane. I can't see you being a Sycamore, boy.
I always was a Sycamore. I took a 6-hour van ride on my visit, my one and only visit to college. Then was, in front of the head coach, and he was like, hey, you heard of Larry Bird, right? It was like, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, that's our guy, I'm like, okay, cool. Okay. This is the school Larry Bird came out of. What about any football players? You ever heard of Vincey Glenn? Yeah, I heard of Vincey Glenn. No, I never heard of Vincey Glenn. I met him when I was in the NFL, but I didn't know him at the time. But that was the only offer that I got. I came back, took the 6-hour van ride back. I said, Dad, they offered me a scholarship. And my dad was like, you ain't going to Indiana State. And I was baffled. I didn't know why. He told me years later why he didn't really want me to go. But at the time, I wasn't sure of why. He knew about places in Indiana because he traveled around.
He'll keep it real.
Yeah, I'm about to keep it real. Yeah, there's a little bit too much racism for you down there.
Right. Okay.
And I wanted my son in a safer spot than Terre Haute, Indiana at the time.
Absolutely.
And so he maybe turned it down. He said, I'll pay for you to go to Morehouse with your brother. My brother was at Morehouse at the time. And I went back, and the signing day came, February of 1986. The coach came in and was like, hey, Indiana State, hey, does anybody else, hey, I know Notre Dame's not knocking on your door because Notre Dame's in the Chicago area. I know Northwestern is knocking on your door. Do U of I send you a scholarship offer in the meantime? I'm like, nope. He's like, well, hey, what's the deal? I don't understand.
Right.
Which, yeah, he's right. I don't understand. This is your only offer, and you're turning it down. I said, my dad don't want me to go. Mm-hmm. And I turned him away. And I thought I just messed up. I was like, man, this is my only offer. Right. I'm turning it down. What is my father thinking?
Right. Pops had inspired you to do this, make this move, encouraged you to make this move. Right. What's happening, right?
Yeah, so I was confused thoroughly. But unbeknownst to me, my father sent a VHS tape of mine. I don't think you'll know anything about that, young fella.
He got VHS, though. He's still,
really?
We were working with him on VHS, so he know a little bit about that.
In 86, they first started VHS and video recording the game, so I had a cut-up tape of mine that my father sent to the University of Miami, Jimmy Johnson, and just kind of sent it out of the blue in hopes that somebody would look at it. And somebody apparently did. And a week after the signing date, only because I had good grades and a player that they were recruiting, the University of Miami, switched on him at the last minute and went to University of Illinois. They said, we got one last scholarship to offer. And are you available?
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history. I mean, I got the last scholarship in 1986 from the University of Miami.
But, hey, that's a sign in which we'll go back to, or we'll most certainly address. God is good.
All the time.
He's on time all the time. It's amazing how he'll provide for you, on time. Because, on his time, not your time.
Correct.
And we struggle with that all the time. I know I do, so I don't want to speak for you guys, but struggle with that all the time. I need to have this here. I need to have this here. And I look back at all the things that have happened in my life, and I'm so grateful for all that we have. And so, it's a blessing, most certainly, to have that opportunity.
Sure. We have plans all the time, and we think that our plans are the greatest, and everything's going to work out. But the ultimate plan is God's plan. Always.
There you go. We're gonna talk about that, boy. I like that. Because we got a few things in common. There's only a few things in common. Now that I know that he's articulate and really bright, we got 3 things in common. But but from the standpoint of like East Coast, West Coast, sunshine states with California and Florida, and then both of us going to the Super Bowl. Now, I didn't go as many times as you go into, but we'll talk about that as well.
Sure.
But also, finishing up our careers here in the Dallas area. So, I mean, because, you know, how do you turn around Florida? How do you turn down California? You know, that just shows you that Texas has been good to us. There's been a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we have in common. Now, the things that we don't have in common is that I ain't got 3 Super Bowls. You know, hey, you know, I wasn't you know, the player of the year in college. You know,
You weren't the number 1 pick either.
I weren't the number 1 pick at all.
You weren't the
know.
number 1 pick?
No,
Oh,
no.
my
You know,
goodness.
yeah, I kind of struggled with that as well, man. You know, I said, hey, you know, what's going on here? But we were able to pull it off, though. You know,
Yep.
we were able to pull it off.
Yep.
But you know, but the accomplishments that you've achieved are fantastic. But so. I'm going to go fast forward because we talked a little bit about growing up, so to speak. But now you go to Miami. You know, I mean, Chicago's a big city, so you're from the city, or you go to Chicago. But now you go to Miami. You got Jimmy over there.
Ain't no place like it, man.
You know.
Talk to me about that experience coming over there. And plus, again, you remember you saying you're that last scholarship over there. You know, so you got to earn your keep over there.
I was last in every sense of the word. You know, I got down to the University of Miami. You know, sight unseen sign, and took a visit.
Went with it, right?
Yeah, I just went with it because you know, my father said, "Yeah, that's the place. You're going there." So I went, and you know, I remember Eastern Airlines, and Eastern Airlines ain't even around no more, man. And
you going backward? You go Eastern Airlines.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, I
you
remember
going
vividly.
back.
I get off the plane in the jet bridge, and the humidity just hits me. You know, it's not them balmy, you know, blustery temperatures in Chicago. It's like, you know, 90 degrees and humid.
Right.
And as soon as I make it from the jet bridge into the Miami airport, I'm in a full sweat. And I'm like, I think I done made the wrong damn decision.
Hey, I hear you. That's funny.
So I go, and the first person that I notice, because they're in the middle of spring practices, and I see this guy just running in front of everybody, running 110 sprints. And here I am. I'm 317 pounds. I had lost a couple pounds by then.
Okay.
And, you know, Coach Johnson is, you know, talking to me, and I'm looking at the guys. And the one guy that's standing out is a guy just talking. He hadn't stopped to this day, Michael Irvin.
He hadn't stopped to this day, huh?
Oh, man, he's just bragging about how he's beating everybody and looking behind him. You know, hey, y'all got to keep up.
That's what we do, though. That's what we do. We see it. That's what we do.
I
I
guess
ain't got
so.
no shame with it over there. So it's all good. That's what we do.
And so I see him, and I'm like, it's hot. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm going to make that. I think I made the wrong decision. and get introduced to Coach Johnson. Coach Johnson looks at me. He's unimpressed. I look at him, and he looks at me. He's still yet unimpressed. And he's like, hey, well, son, you got to be ready when you come back here because we work hard, son. We work hard. I'm like, okay, I'll be ready. And all the while I'm thinking, oh, man, I ain't going to be ready. But I get there, and, you know, I start working out, doing the 110s, and I'm just dying. But the weight is just coming off. I mean, I don't feel like eating no more. Right. I'm just, you know, I'm working out. I got a good strength coach there, but they're just killing me. In that first year, you know, the offensive linemen seem like grown men. And I'm on the scout team. I get red-shirted, rightfully so, and I was just getting tore up, man. And every day I wanted to quit. I sit in front of my locker, just let the sweat drip off of me. I was like, man, I want to quit. But then I think about the consequence of quitting and going back to my father and mother. You know, 1,100 miles, they sent me away, and they like, you know, you ain't coming back. And I was like, okay, well, I can make it another day. And I had a string of other days. Eventually, I stuck around, and by the end of the season, I had lost 50 pounds.
Wow!
So I was down to 267. Man, I was beach ready, boy.
Hey, there you go.
I had that beach bod ready. Man, I was ready. Oh man, yeah, I thought I was you know, too cool there, too cute. But and so the second year, just like my high school years, I got a little bit better. Third year, I was starting. And the first game was against, you know, Florida State, the number one team.
Rival in the state and number one in the nation, right?
And number one in the nation. And the number one player on the number one team was a Jerry Curl, Deion Sanders, prime time, you know. And they had just made a Super Bowl Shuffle-esque video of the Chicago Bears. They were the Seminoles, and Coach Johnson popped the tape in. And we looked at that right before the game. He just walked out of the office, popped the tape in. We looked at the tape. We were disgusted. We were like, man, you know, we're the king of Florida.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
And we played that game, and, you know, the rest is history, man. I didn't really know what I was doing as a first-time starter, but I was just running all over the place.
Yeah.
and just trying to make things happen. And things eventually slowed down for me, and I had a great career at the University of Miami. Stayed there 5 years, played 4, and won 2 national championships out of it in '87 and '89.
You know, what's interesting, and I know I'll let you come back with that. What's interesting is that, you're talking about the impact that your father had in your life.
Yes.
When I went to Stanford, and Stanford was the worst trip that I took. It was the worst trip.
Really?
I had scholarships from USC, UCLA, all as quarterbacks. Cal Berkeley, I was a quarterback.
Okay.
And I got a lot of riff about not playing quarterback in college. My city jumped on me, man. Because
Really?
being one of the first black quarterbacks that can do their thing, they were on me. But I went to Stanford because the guy by the name of, not necessarily one because they threw the ball 50 times a year. I love to say it was all about academics, but it had nothing to do with academics. They were throwing the ball, and I had a chance to, if I caught 1/3 of those chances, I might be in the NFL, And so Gene Washington, and you might be a little too young for this, but Gene Washington was a wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. Well, he went to Long Beach Poly High School with me, and so he went to Stanford, then went to San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah.
But he was a quarterback in high school.
Okay.
Transitioned to wide receiver in the pros. So he shared that with me. I ended up going there. But my freshman year, I tore my ACL. Freshman year, and I kind of struggled with it. But part of the reason that I think that I had so much success in college, which is crazy, although I realized God had that plan for me, but it was my parents. I didn't want to embarrass them. I was struggling at Stanford, at academia. I didn't know what study was like until I got to Stanford.
Really?
There was a whole new project in my life. But the thought of me not making it or embarrassing my family or my parents was that inspiration that kept me going. I learned later that it was all about me. It was what I stood to gain, not necessarily what you're going to do for them. And so
Sure.
I grew up, but I see that may have had an impact in your life as well, from the standpoint of the family and the way that you were brought up.
Sure, it was very important that I did nothing to sully the family name,
Right.
to embarrass my parents, because by that time I was realizing all that they had put in me and instilled in me, value-wise, food-wise, just to keep us, to where we stand, and to do anything to mess that up, that would jeopardize my scholarship, that would get me sent home, that would get me in trouble, that would get me arrested. I had to stay away from it, and because I wasn't going to mess up that opportunity, because I know what they had, that they had put in me, and what they had a plan for me to set out to be the best person that I could be. Not necessarily a football player, because
Right.
I never had any, really desire to be a professional athlete. I remember growing up in Chicago watching the '85 Bears and the Fridge and, Mike Singletary and Richard Dent and the Punky QB, Jim McMahon, and most of all, Sweetness.
Yeah,
Everybody
there you go.
wanted to be Sweetness,
There you
Walter
go.
Payton.
There you go.
But I had no thought that I could ever be on that level until I got to University of Miami.
And going there, and I want to continue to elaborate, but my relationship with my parents was so strong that I tore my ACL that year, and my dad, we went and saw 4 or 5 doctors. We weren't going for that first diagnosis.
Sure.
Can't be a torn ACL. Hey, walk, man. You can walk.
Yeah.
Hey, find a way to make this happen.
Right.
So when after we found out everything that was happening. My dad said, "You're gonna be all right. You're gonna be all right." So my junior year, my dad said, "I told you you're gonna be all right. And when you go to the pros, I'm gonna be your agent." Now my dad had like a 9th grade education.
Okay.
The only thing he knew about sports was, hey, being the best. Because my pops was out there with me all the time. Long story short, though, I graduate. I'm looking at Drew Rosenthal. I'm looking at all these agents over here, and pops goes, "Hey, you ready? I got a plan for you, and bottom line, he was my agent. He became my agent. My father was my agent,
Okay.
and it was the best move I ever made, because
Really?
I knew everything that he did was for me, in my
Yeah.
best interest. That's a good feeling to know that, no matter what, it might not have been it might have been right or wrong. The bottom line is he believed it was in my best interest.
Sure.
You can't ask for no more than that.
Definitely not. My father, similarly, he wasn't my agent, but he interviewed a bunch of different agents, and he had a full-time job himself. But I remember him many a time come to Miami and interviewing agents, all the way from the upper echelon of agents to the ones that had no, possibility of representing me. And he put a lot of work into doing that. and I appreciated that. And I got the best agent at the time to represent me in my NFL career.
So let's talk about, Anth. We got some similarities, and we'll talk about that. I mean, you and my son, and you and your son playing football, et cetera. We'll talk about those relationships.
Sure.
But people want to know about the locker room in Miami and the locker room with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, talk to me. It was, you come from Miami, and you got guys that just talking.
Yeah.
But your bottom line, you always getting the job done.
Right.
And you come to Dallas, first person pick. The expectations there. What was it like in the locker room for y'all?
You know what? It was kind of similar because we had a couple of Miami guys, and Michael Irvin, Danny Stubbs was there at the time, Alonzo Highsmith was there. So we had a couple of Miami guys. It was starting to be known as, the Dallas Hurricanes, and so Coach Johnson really knew what he wanted to insert into that locker room, and it had a lot of similarities. The Hurricanes, we had a lot of guys, mostly Florida boys. They thought that they were the best at everything, and they were great athletes, but they were great athletes, and they tell you that they were great athletes, on and off the field. So it was really a good, it was a good, and with Coach Johnson being a great manager of men, collegiately or in the NFL, it made for great competition within the whole, a culture of competition. Because you had guys that, they were so wild, they can go this way or that way and can really be off the chain. But Coach Johnson was like, okay, you guys can go wild, but in this space here.
Right.
Once you get outside of those edges, then we got problems. So I really thought that Coach Johnson at the collegiate level and the professional level did a great job of developing those boundaries and say, hey, we're going to do what we do, and I'm going to let you be you, but within these boundaries because, we still got some games to win, and we're not going to detract away from winning those games by, out of bounds activity. So it was a great, it made for great culture of competition and culture of winning ultimately.
No, I like that. So you had the chance. This guy goes. There was a similarity though, from the standpoint. Your first year, y'all go to Super Bowl, right?
No, second year. My
year.
second year.
All right, my first year we went to the Super Bowl, but I ain't seen no bowls before that. Hey, Stanford, only bowls we saw were on TV. We weren't going, and the reason why is that we weren't allowed to go to bowls. See, at Stanford, it was during finals week. And so they weren't letting us go. If we didn't play in the Rose Bowl, we weren't allowed to go in any bowls.
Y'all weren't going to the Rose Bowl.
Well, we weren't going there. You're right. We weren't going to the Rose Bowl. But the thing is that the following year, the year that I graduated, Bill Walsh comes over to Stanford as the head coach and changed the whole program around. They go into the Sun Bowl, they go into the Peach, they go into all these bowl games. That didn't happen when we were there. As soon as the season's over, we going home. But I did play in 2 Super Bowls. We went to the Bowls over there, and you went to the Bowls. But in our locker room, it was a little bit different, because Coach Landry, we had a couple characters. They had Tony Hill, they had Thomas Hollywood Henderson, Tony Dorsett. I mean, Tony was the man on the field, off the field, and anytime he wanted to be, he was that kind of man. But in your guys' locker room, though, you guys got some personalities. You just got to keep it real. You got Dion over, you got Michael, you got
Charles Haley.
Hey, you got Charles Haley. How did you guys? And see, that's the difference. Coach wanted us to be a certain way. To a certain extent.
Yeah.
Jimmy didn't care how you function as long as you took care of business on the field. Is
Coach
that
Johnson,
right?
like I said, he was a great manager of men, and he was a bottom line coach. And he surrounded the team with guys that were players. You have some guys that were characters, like the ones you just mentioned. You had some guys that were prima donnas. You had some guys that, but the majority of the team were worker bees. They were guys that were supplementary guys. Guys that could add to it. But he always he made sure that if the example needed to be set, he would set the example. Like when, he just got John Roper, and John Roper fell asleep in the special teams meeting, he made an example. He was gone.
Right.
He was gone. And guys saw that, was like, oh, whoa.
Right.
You know, there was his Miami guys, eventually Danny Stubbs and Alonzo Highsmith, that he had to cut. It's like, oh, wow, he cut those guys.
Right.
If he cut those guys, he could cut me too. And I never, even though I was the number one pick, I was always on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
'Cause, you know, I thought I could be made an example of too if I wasn't producing.
Sure.
So Coach Johnson really did a great job in making sure that he got guys that ultimately wanted to win games, and they could do all kinds of other mess, you know, on and off the field. But when it came down to Sundays,
Right.
when it came down to Monday nights, we were all about winning. And if you weren't about winning, then you were out of here.
Well, and you know, that's interesting. You know, I think I would have loved, and I enjoyed playing with Coach Landry. Don't get it twisted, but I would have loved to play with Jimmy, because Jimmy is all about, if you can do it, we're gonna get it to you. If you can do it, we're gonna get it to you.
Right.
Now you playing, you know, I mean, you up there, got one of the best defenses, if not ever, for the Dallas Cowboys. Got one of the best offensive, if not ever, for the Dallas Cowboys. How was it playing against and practicing with your guys and then going to play in the field? Now, I say that, for example, when I was at the Cowboys, we had some good offensive linemen, but we didn't have mean offensive linemen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We were lean, but we weren't heavy. And you know, I look at the guys. I wrote a list over here. You know, you got Gogan, you got Tuinei, you got Eric Williams, you got Nate, you got Stepnowski. You know, this is on your line over here.
Yeah.
And I know Tuinei and Nate personally. You know, I knew them really well, so I know what their mentality was. But to have those guys on, and then I left out, and you know, later on you add Larry Allen on the line, right?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you guys are stout on that defensive line. I mean, like, offensive line.
Yeah.
Practice had to be harder than the game.
Well,
For sure. There
that's
you
what I'm
go.
gonna say.
You hit it right on the head, Anthony. I mean, when we were out there going against those guys that you mentioned, Stepnowski, Ray Donaldson, you know.
I left out Ray, right?
Yeah. Going against those guys in practice, when it got to game time, it was like, man, it was a relief, you know. It's like, hey, okay, we can do this.
Right.
Because we face the best every day in practice. You know, it was me and Tony Casillas, whether it was Chad Hennings and Leon Lett behind me, whether it was Tony Tober or
Charles Haley.
Charles Haley. We like to think that we provided that same level of competition for them. Mm-hmm. And that's when I talk about the culture of competition. If you do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday becomes easy. And it's the NFL. It's not easy, but
Right.
it's easier.
Yeah. And go ahead.
So, some you all got in common as well. Well, I don't know. Pops going in, he's talked a lot about his mindset when he was drafted. He's like, I didn't come here to make the team. I came here to start, right? So, year one, that was not his fate. Year two, that became his fate. Year one for you, you played, but you weren't starting year one as well, right? Year two, the first year of Super Bowl is where you really got a lot of your reps in, right?
It took me 10 years into my first year to break the starting lineup. 10 games, I'm sorry. Did I say 10? It took me 10 games in my first year to start to break the starting lineup. And it was just a matter. It didn't matter if you're number one pick. You had to earn your way to a number one spot. And I had some guys that were in front of me that were veterans that knew the game, and I was just I was a great athlete, but I still didn't know the nuances of the game. I didn't know how to practice. And the guy who really helped me with that was my mentor, Jim Jeffcoat.
Jim Jeffcoat. We call him Coat. Coat played with me, though. I don't know if you knew that, right?
Yeah. So Colt came in '83. He was already there for 8 years when I got there.
Nice.
Yeah.
He took me under his wing. He said, "Hey, come here, Rook. Let me show you how to watch film. And this guy in practice, he likes to do this. He likes to do this. Oh, maybe you shouldn't do this at night, or maybe you should take your time to get this much rest." So he gave me all the answers to the test.
Nice.
And then by October, November, I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm getting this. And I got the chance to start, and I never looked back. For the remaining 9.5 seasons, I was a starter wherever I went. I mean, it was mostly because of Jim Jeffcoat, or Coates.
Yeah, Coat. That's good stuff. Because Coat came in with us and played with me, and we had some good times and as a team. But you're talking about, like you said, hey, your toughest feat was playing in practice, so to speak. Because on a defensive standpoint, I mean, you got Haley, you got Tolbert, you got Leon and Casillas over there. You got yourself. Then in your linebacker, you got Dixon Edwards and Norton, and then you had James Washington as a safety. But when James goes, you bring in Thomas Everett.
Right.
And then you look back at Larry Brown started to emerge. You know, he found up his game, and Kevin Smith. So I mean, you guys going up against one another not only made, as you said, made you guys stronger, but it made our offense better. And you're talking about a team that's got, you got Emmett, you got Alvin Harper, you got Michael Irvin, you got Troy, you got DJ. I mean, and I'm talking about it because, I'm proud of my ball. I mean, we had some boys. I got Dupree, Dorsett, Hill and Pearson and Roger Staubach, Robert Newhouse. I mean, I got some names we can throw at you, but you know what? Y'all had a ball club, buddy. You all had a ball club,
We had, man, it was a blessing to have all of those guys that were great players, but also guys that were winners. And when it came down to practicing, when it came down to preparing for games, when it came down to watching film, when it came down to just, being coachable guys and understanding, what we had in front of us game by game by game, I mean, it was a blessing to, when you look back at it and say, man, it was great to play with those guys. Because I've been on some teams, I've left the Cowboys, and I played with some teams that you had great athletes, but they didn't have all those attributes.
They had the full package.
They didn't have the full package. You had some guys that, played well one day, but then didn't play well the next day. Some guys sometimes cut corners. Then you have some teams that just, weren't as good athletically. Some guys had issues with the coaches. Sometimes the teams didn't have the greatest of coaches.
Right.
So, it was a blessing to be picked at number one and not really go to a bad team. This was a team where, the second year that I was there, we were in the Super Bowl. The third year, I was in the Super Bowl. And the fifth year, I was in the Super Bowl. So it was just by the grace of God that I was able to be picked in that position and go where I went and play with who I played with.
Yeah. So, Pops, you've talked to me a lot about Russell. You know this about him, and he if I didn't see it because I wasn't born, he'll tell me about it. So I know a lot about his great plays.
Okay.
For you, man, did you have a favorite? He tells me about cornerbacks that his eyes would light up when you see him in front of him. Did you have favorite quarterbacks to sack while you were playing?
You know what? I wasn't really known for my sacking prowess. I probably got about 20-something in my 10 years. My favorite quarterback to sack was anybody I can get my hands on. I remember getting after Randall Cunningham, and I got him a time or two. Got Warren Moon a time or two. I got 3 sacks. The most sacks I got in the game was my rookie year. And I can't remember who the guy was. It was a Pittsburgh Steelers. It was the Steelers or New Orleans. I can't remember the game, but I got 3 sacks that game, and it was like my breakout game. So, but sacks. I was more known for run stopping.
Yeah,
I became more known for run stopping, and you had Leon Lett, who was the guy in the 7th round pick out of the small Emporia State, and Chad Hennings. They could both rush the passer. So, I was like, hey, if those guys could help us win, I'll give them a third down. Hey, come on in. Come on, give me a break. You can get the sack, and I'm like, hey, it's all good.
And he's being politically correct over here. How I don't know who the worst quarterback. I don't remember no quarter. Oh, he know who the quarterback is. So don't let that fool you. He knows who that quarterback is.
I might have should have said running back then.
But let's talk about that. Who was the tough? Eliminate Emmett. Of course, eliminate any of your team members, but the toughest running back that you had to go up against, who?
Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders.
No, hands down. I remember we played a game. I don't know if it was a Monday night game or Sunday night game. I think we had the double star jerseys on, so it's probably easy to remember to go back and figure that out. I mean, Barry Sanders is, play goes off, defeat my block. Barry Sanders is coming right at me, and I got him dead to right in the hole. Man, I must have blinked my eyes or something. And next thing you know, I'm ended up hugging myself and going to the ground. and Barry Sanders is around the
20
corner.
20 yards downfield, huh?
80 yards for a touchdown.
Yards.
So, yeah, so Barry Sanders was, and the one Barry Sanders run in the playoffs probably a year or two before where he just running all over us, you know, and Tony Casillas is just kind of like, you know, he runs right past Tony Casillas. Barry Sanders used to eat us up. Yeah.
Most gifted back, Barry Sanders. Who's your toughest physical back that you ever had to go up against?
Oh, my goodness. So one game, my rookie year, I think we played the Chiefs, and you had the big boys like Word and Okoye.
Oh.
They were both in the backfield at the same time. And it was crazy. So that was
you got a fullback and a tailback. That's a tailback bigger than a fullback.
Right, exactly. You know, those guys. That was a tough game. And then always Craig Hayward, big Ironhead at Hayward.
Ironhead, okay.
Yeah, we played against him when he was at Pitt and when he was with the Falcons. And he took me out one game with the Falcons, like the last play of the game. He put that big Ironhead on my knee, and that was for me, though. So, you know, so I those are the two guys that come to mind the quickest.
Hey, Russell, at this point in time, man, we usually close our last few segments. We talk about family. We talk about your faith in God and just things that you're doing, you know. And I always ask Anthony to, you know, kind of help me on that closing attitude. And also I might want to talk, if we have time, I might want to talk about some experiences that you had in your home, in Carroll, South Lake. Mm-hmm. So if we got time, we'll see that. If not, we'll get you another time.
Okay.
Yeah. So you know, we took a trip down memory lane a little bit. We talked a lot about where we've been, and we like to talk a lot about where we are now, right? So you know, you got a son who's playing over at SMU.
Yeah.
We were talking before the show about, hey, will we be watching them in championship weekend? Who only time will tell, right?
Uh-huh.
You got 2 daughters. You know, you talked a lot about the lessons that your parents instilled in you, man. What type of things are you doing in your house, man, to keep those values going? Talk to us a little bit more about the Maryland household.
Sure. Well, I've been married since 1995 to my beautiful wife, Rose, who I met down at Miami. She didn't go to the University of Miami, but I met her at Miami.
It's a good place to meet women, man. That's where I met my wife.
Oh, really? Yeah. Hey, I tell you what, she's a beautiful girl and a very, very smart, strong, and passionate woman. So I was lucky to grab her up. And I got 3 beautiful kids out of it. My oldest daughter, Kyra, who's 27. I got a middle child, Iris, who's 24. And they both went to University of Miami. They're also Hurricanes. Wanted my son to go to be a Hurricane, but it didn't work out that way. So he became a Mustang at SMU, right around the corner here. And he's R.J. Maryland. And he didn't have none of this. He's more of a lean guy, like a Tony Hill, you know.
But hey, it's all good though. I just want y'all to know that, right? Hey.
So he's a tight end, number 82, and he's a fabulous player, man. I love to watch him play. And the things that we tried to instill in them, they were athletes, track, high jumper, volleyball, basketball, coming up. And we've always told them to finish strong. Whatever they start, to finish it and to do well at it, and no half-stepping. Always to put their best into whatever they decide to start. And those are the main things that we try to instill in them, other than being good, God-fearing kids, as my parents have made us be, me and my brothers be. To be good, to be selfless, to be caring of their fellow man. And those are the main tenets of life that we try to instill in them, and we try to be that way ourselves, my wife and I.
Yeah. So, Pops, that leads to kind of what you were teeing up earlier, man. If in order to be God-fearing and to, as you said, finish strong, right? That means sometimes you got to be in spaces that might be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We know that you've been outspoken and a good steward of the community in South Lake Carroll, speaking about, just the racism and things that are going on there. And like, hey, I grew up, and when I grew up in South Lake Carroll, the only brothers I knew there were Trey Newton, and whoever the receiver was at the time. Right? I'm Dave myself, so I know that there's not a lot of representation. Tell us a little bit, man, about what's going on there and what you're doing to try to change that.
Sure. I've been a resident of South Lake, Texas, since 2001, since I retired from the league, and my neighborhood. I mean, so only a sprinkling of African Americans there at the time. It's really still only a few of us there, and unbeknownst to a lot of people, there was some racial bullying that was going on in the schools, and in 2018 there was a video that went viral that came out of kids just kind of spouting the N-word, and that's where basically I mean, it was happening before, but that's where it came to a head. And so the African-American parents in the community, we got together and said, hey, this needs to stop. So we presented to the school board and the people within the city, the powers that be. We said, hey, this needs to stop. It's 2018. Let's make some changes. They were sympathetic, and one of the school board members came to me and said, crying with tears in his eyes, was like saying, hey, we need to change. We need to stop this from happening. There's no reason why our kids should go through school, not be protected, and not feel safe. And we thought something was going to happen, but then there was, we had some things that were moving forward. We formulated a committee, diverse committee, young, old, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, and we said, here's a solution. And we gave the powers that be, the school board, city council, and all of them a solution of what should change in the school district with the kids. They said, oh, great. And we worked on that for 2 years. And then they said, oh, well, you know what? Never mind. They got a little bit of backlash from a small group in the community, but loud group that said, you know, we don't want this. We don't want this change this quickly. Well, no, it's not quickly. It's 2 years.
Yeah.
And so there was an ongoing struggle from there out to say, hey, no, this needs to happen. Y'all just can't wash this away and continuing to sweep our kids' experiences under the rug. And in essence, that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to say, shh, you shouldn't be so loud. We don't want our community to be sullied in that manner. It's like, oh, no, we're just telling the truth. And if you guys won't do anything about it, we'll get somebody in to do something about it. Thus, in a couple of years later, we had federal complaints, that over 7-8 federal complaints on what was happening in Carroll Independent School District in South Lake Carroll. And they were saying, oh, no, nothing's going to become of it. You guys are just whining. And the kids came with hundreds of complaints themselves and put it on the internet. They said, this is what happened to me. This is my experience. And people were continuously saying, no, that's not your experience. You're not telling the truth. Well, long story short, the feds did come back and say, oh, you know what? Yes, Carroll ISD, you are guilty of violating these kids' civil rights based on Title VI, race, creed, color, or Title IX, sexual orientation, gender, all of those things. And we said, okay, now you're gonna listen to us?
Right.
And wrong. They're still digging their feet in. So we're kind of at an impasse at this moment. And they just refuse. Some people refuse. The policymakers are refusing to move forward with change and further protections in the community. And I've just tried to be on the front end to make sure that this change happens because, I mean, hey, when I first moved to the community, they always wanted Russell, Maryland to be at the forefront to help raise money for the school district, to help come speak to our kids, help come coach my kids, come speak to our churches, come to our schools, speak to our kids at the schools, come speak to our organizations. I was glad to do it because these are my neighbors. I didn't care if you were white, black, gay, straight, didn't matter. You were my neighbors. And I just want to be a better example of what neighbors should actually be. And if you're a neighbor that's not protecting the most precious of these and our kids, then you ain't a neighbor of mine. We may live by each other, but you're not a neighbor. And that's the short of it.
Oh, I like it, man. Stand for something or fall for anything. I like it, big fella. Hey, put your feet in that sand and stand up and be heard. Sure. And let it be known.
Yep.
As we close our show, Russell, the title of our show is called Breakfast with the Boys. Yeah. So what I always do, I ask my guys, like, when you were playing, what was your favorite breakfast?
Oh, okay. Well, I like to eat, but unfortunately, before games, I couldn't put a lot in because it would stay on my stomach just because of the nervous energy.
Right.
So I had to eat very little. I would eat a little bit of hash browns, a little bit of grits, some toast, and maybe bacon, sometimes not, just depending on how I felt. But it would be a very light meal. Okay. So I can go out and
do your thing.
Yes.
So I couldn't eat before games.
Really, at all?
No, I couldn't really eat at all. It's one of those things that I had to feel light. You know,
Yeah,
if I didn't feel light, if I could be able to move. I just didn't eat. Now I would scarf afterwards.
Right, exactly.
I'd lose 10 or 12 pounds a game, especially during this, during the summer.
Yeah.
You know, when we come into Texas Stadium, it'd be hot. I mean, you guys had the dome and everything, but it'd be hot. So with that being said, now we know what you did before the games. What's your favorite breakfast right now? And that's what we'll close with.
Oh my goodness, my favorite breakfast right now, man. I still make a mean pot of grits.
There you go.
Maybe put some Gouda cheese in there, And oh man, the grits has always been a staple of mine. So some good grits and maybe some bacon. And if I want to go out and grab a quick sandwich from a fast food joint, it'll be the Chick-fil-A chicken biscuit, man. So. That would be good enough for me.
Well, I can't believe you didn't jump on that. Are you a sugar or butter, man? Sugar or salt, man?
Oh no, no butter. I mean, no sugar.
You ain't put no sugar.
Lots of butter,
Yeah.
Lots of cheese, but no sugar,
No
man.
sugar, man.
That's like a Southern thing, right?
That's a Southern thing. Yeah.
No. I'm salt, man. I'm all about the salt.
Hey, you heard it right here on Breakfast with the Boys. Hey, Russ, man, you the man, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And hey, we're gonna spend some time together.
Great.
And we're closing it right on. No salt, but no sugar.
Sugar.
That's been the verdict. You only had one that had sugar. So hey,
Who has sugar?
didn't Dorsett have sugar? No.
No, I don't think we've had a sugar yet, man.
Oh, okay.
Someone told me they had sugar before they became a man.
Hey, we love you. Breakfast with the Boys.
Have you ever took a journey to the other side? Come on, take a ride. Have you ever took a journey? We gon' feel alive. You gon' feel